right, guys, welcome to the session. This is the FLEID technical session. My name is Shauna Reed. I'm the Bureau Chief of Technology Planning and Management, and I'm also the manager of the FLEID team. Okay, so I'll talk to you guys about some technical components of the FLEID process. We'll walk through some items. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know, and we'll go ahead and knock those out. All right, so we're going to start off with FLEID housekeeping. Some of these first slides may be really similar to the data quality session with Shannon, so if you attended, just bear with us. It will be a little redundant, but we'll get into some content that's a little bit different a little bit later on, okay? So we'll do the housekeeping. We'll go into the introductory concepts. We'll talk a little bit about an FLEID technical tune-up. There are some items that the technical team wants to make sure you guys are aware of, so we'll just put that out there. We're going to talk through some of our existing processing, as well as some new process refinements and some upcoming processing that's going to take place. And of course, in the last session, if you were there, I talked about matching and verifications, and then we'll double back to that as well, okay? Let's start off with housekeeping. So Shannon took you guys down Data Quality Street. I'm taking you down Technical Boulevard, okay? So follow me on this journey. All right, let's go ahead and run through this. So we have two sessions. We had Shannon's session, which was a data quality session. Now, every year we typically have an intro session and an advanced session. We did it a little bit different this year. We did technical versus data quality. If you guys have a preference on what you prefer, if you want to have the intro session for the newer staff members, you prefer the old format, let us know. That's what that survey feedback is for. We're open to it. We love to hear your feedback, and it really helps us with our presentations from year to year. So let us know if you like this or if you prefer the other format, and that's what we'll roll with. As Shannon mentioned, we are accepting 14-15 and 21-22 submissions from 14-15 through 21-22. So if you have it, send it, feel free, okay? The FAMIS survey feedback, like I mentioned, that's important to us. We do utilize that feedback. We read through those. It's great. We love your constructive criticism. Anything that you have, we're open to. So don't feel like you're going to hurt our feelings. We can take it. Please specify the presenter name. That really helps us as well. So if we need to improve on something individually, we can do that. And lastly, the contact updates, like Shannon mentioned, this is the time. Let us know if you have any new staff members, anyone that's new to the team, send it on over to us via email, and we'll go ahead and update the system so we can get you guys those notifications and make sure that everyone is reaching out to the appropriate person. I'm going to run through that same introductory cheat sheet that Shannon did, just for those of you who weren't in that preliminary session. So of course, FLEID is a 14-character alphanumeric identifier. It starts with an F and an L and the remaining series of numbers, okay? It is used to uniquely identify student and staff, as Shannon mentioned. Although we are collecting both student and staff, it is required for student submissions and it is optional for staff. There's no date that we have right now to indicate that it will be required for staff, so just keep that in mind. The FLEID was mandated by 2014 legislation, which was it's Florida Statute 1008.386. If you feel like you want to take a look at it, feel free. It also now includes the administrative rule that was implemented as of July 1. So if you all want a little bit more information, go check out that Florida statute. The FLEIDs are currently stored in a database known as the Vault. And it's essentially a SQL Server database that only myself and my team have access to. No one else in the department. Internal, external, no one else except for my team has access to this information, and we consider that the secure vault, okay? As of July 1, 2020, the FLEID is the only identifier accepted on district submissions. You guys are very familiar with that. District and college files, of course, can be processed throughout the day, Monday through Friday. We have a maintenance window from 5:30 to 10. You can still continue to submit your files. They'll just get picked up as normal once that maintenance window is done. The FLEID has been great with reducing the usage of the social security number. So as you all know, before it was embedded within the student ID. So every single place in the department that we collected student files, there's an SSN. So we had all these different areas and entry points within the department where we were collecting student information, well, SSN information within the student ID. And so this helps us with reducing that transferring. And now everyone is transferring the FLEID in its place. And so the identifier quality and accuracy, I would say, is one of the one of the biggest benefits. Prior to working as the Bureau Chief of the Technology Planning and Management Group, I was in the Education Data Warehouse within the department. There was a lot of linkage, a lot of, tracking across years for accountability purposes, and it was very difficult with the existing student ID because they changed from district to district or there was inconsistencies. But since we have an opportunity to manage the vault quality and the accuracy, it has been much easier. A lot of the internal offices rely on us within the department to be able to tell them, is this a valid FLDID for that student? So it has opened us up to be able to do a lot more around quality and accuracy. And verifications, again, is really huge within the department. We are doing source verifications for the colleges, as well as for some of the other groups like assessments. So there's a large number of verifications taking place, and this has been critical internally. And one thing that we want to keep reiterating this year is the training site. We've had a lot of new staff members who we're not sure where to start. We don't know how to begin. Make sure you check out that training website. It has videos, it has clips, it has pertinent information as a good starting point. So if you guys are unaware of how to begin, check out that training site. We also have the FLDID technical guide, which also includes some of the same information. So all of those items are available at request. If you email the FLDID project at FLDOE.org, we can get you whatever you need. So let's just run through some of those milestones for FLDID. We've come a long way since 2014. I know everyone was scared about FLDID. No, we don't want it. I remember those presentations. It began in 2014, the piloting, and it was implemented in 14-15. And I know the districts and colleges began their onboarding at that time in 15-16. Okay. In summer 2016, I joined the team and we started doing a lot of refinements. We moved from manual processing, we went to automated processing. We started looking into a lot of the quality around the identifier, and we also started working towards making it required on state assessments. So that all happened in 2016. In early 2017, I started working on the administrative rule with some of the internal groups. It was a very long process. It went from a paragraph to 4 pages, back down to a paragraph. So it was a lot of edits on the administrative rule, and that was throughout early 2017. In 17-18, Shannon and I, as well as the team, we kicked up a lot of the data quality. We started digging into what was happening in the vault. We started noticing some of the file submission quality. We weren't happy with it. And so we implemented pre-processing data quality edits in 18-19. That's been huge for us. The quality of the data has been really clean because of those checks. And so that was implemented in 18-19, and then in 19-20, we continued those extensive data verifications, especially internally. They were crucial. And in 2020, we implemented the administrative rule saying that the FLDID would be required on all survey submissions, data survey submissions, I should say. And now we're in 2021. So let's talk a little bit about what's new as of 2021. So we have the corrections process phase 1. Many of you all are already submitting corrections. This phase 1 is not going to be a stretch. It's just standardizing a couple of things, and we'll talk through that in a little bit. We have testing simulations for new ERPs. We have had some districts contact us and say, we have a new system. We would like to test our file submission process. So that is something that we now have available. I'll also cover that in one of the slides coming up. And then another one we have is file submission duplication checks. We've been noticing some of the districts have been sending us the exact same file over and over again. We're not sure why. There could be a reason. I'm just not sure what that reason is. So we are now flagging those duplicate submissions as well. Okay, so you'll start seeing that if you are one of those districts that are submitting the same file for whatever reason, that might start coming up as well. Okay, now let's take a look at the technical tune-up. So the technical team, many of you all may know Brian Walsh, Tony Davis. They are critical to the technical processes within FLDID. And as you know, Shannon Stewart and Trevor Owens, they help with data quality. Those are 2 segments of staff that help us with the FLDID process. So Brian and Anthony wanted us to cover a couple of items. So I'm going to run through that with you guys. So we went through our help desk and we wanted to see what are some of the common things that users of the FLDID run into. And so one of the ones, the primary one I would say is IP whitelisting, IP address whitelisting. So what is that? So what ends up happening is we see that a couple of districts who've used FLEID for over a year, one day they'll call us and say, we can't access our FTP. What's happening? We can't get to it. And so typically what we start out with saying is, can you contact someone locally and find out if you've had any cloud-based systems that were implemented, any new SISs, any changes to the server? And typically that helps them to realize that there was a change locally. And we ask that they just simply reach out to our help desk. That email address is at the top of the screen. It's IN help desk. And they'll be able to help you to whitelist that IP address. Basically, we add it to a list to say that that IP address is okay for you all to be able to access FLEID files via the FTP, okay? That is like one of our biggest issues. So if you run into any FTP issues one day and you've been using it every day without any issue, start there. Contact the IN help desk and see if maybe that IP address needs to be whitelisted, okay? It's common. The next one we get is typically from new users. They'll say, hey, can you add a new user in place of the prior user to the FLEID application for my district? We'll tell them typically as a response that's handled locally. Please get in contact with your local single sign-on administrator, and they should be able to get you the appropriate access. Okay. The last one is more so something that Brian and the team have seen. It's called a file part error. And it usually happens when part of the file has been transmitted, but not the entire file. It's been caused by a number of different things locally. The mechanism that they used to transfer didn't completely finalize the file. And what we see on our end is the name of the file with the extension .part. And so we'll let you know, we see that your file is partially transmitted. We'll let you know, and we ask that you just review locally to see if your technical team will be able to assist you. Almost 99% of the time, it's a local issue with the F2P tool that's being used. So we just ask that you kind of pay some of those things. They are common, and we have seen them, and this is typically our response. Next up, again, we're reiterating that training website. We're just going to keep talking about the training website. It has been really beneficial. So we just want to make sure that everyone is aware that it's available and you guys get to it if you need it. The next one that we have is special characters. This one has tripped up a lot of people with pre-processing. Special characters are things that we consider non-printable characters. If you can't type it on the keyboard, it's considered a non-printable character. So a lot of the Hispanic names have the N and the accent over the N. That is a pre-processing error. We need printable characters on submission. If you have any confusion as to what is considered a special character or a printable character versus a non-printable character, reach out to us. We have a document available so that we can tell you specifically what we're looking at, and that's creating the problem. Any questions so far? Beautiful. All right, so let's talk about existing processing. So this is the core of FLDEID. So you may not necessarily need to know this for day-to-day. It's not important for daily operations. It's just something that you guys should just be aware of in the background. These are the primary technologies for the FLDEID. We use TIPCO for our secure file transfers. And so that is what you would see as far as our FTP is concerned. Next, we have SAS Master Data Management. That is the core of our FLDEID assignment process. And so if you all are curious as to how we're assigning IDs, it is done through SAS Master Data Management. Pre-processing edits. We do pre-processing in a tool called IBM Data Stage. It helps us with all of those preliminary checks that happens on your file that causes those pre-processing rejects. And of course, we have the Secure Vault. It is a SQL Server database. So all of the data is collected in SQL Server. And lastly, the application is an ASP.NET application. It was developed in ASP.NET. So if you all were ever just curious about how the background of FLDEID works, these are the technologies. All right, so let me just quickly run through the primary objectives of the assignment process and some of the things that we do. So first off is the data quality checks. Of course, we call them the pre-processing validation edits. And they are just basically supposed to help you with the standards around the file. We tell you what we require, and this simply just checks it to make sure you're sending it based on those requirements. Next, we have FLDEID assignment. Once you pass those edits, then we're going to submit you for assignment. And three things can either happen. One, we see you in the vault, so you get an existing FLDEID. You very closely match to someone in the vault, but we just can't make the determination programmatically. So we make it available to you all locally so you can make those near matching decisions yourselves with more information that you have available to you. And at a high level, here is the flow. So it basically starts off with an education entity. So it could be the districts, the Office of Early Learning. We have a population of students who test with the districts at FACHE schools. We have district adult education, and we have Florida college system, as well as the scholarship participants. These are all part of education agencies or entities. So once those files are submitted, they come through to us. Like I said, we do the pre-processing validation edits. If they pass the edits, it goes into the vault, either as a new ID or we do the near match process. That's literally the process in a nutshell. You get back a file with the FLDEIDs if we have one, or if it closely matches, it goes into the application. So that is the process. That is the FLDEID process. This one summarizes the processing layers that I just talked about, and I can associate them with the software so you guys are aware. So file submissions, which are facilitated through TIPCO, as we discussed, they are completed Monday through Sunday with the exception of that processing window, that maintenance window. And everyone is pretty familiar with that maintenance window if you've been working with FLDEID for a while. We do the pre-processing validations. Again, that's facilitated through IBM Data Stage. We have the file matching and assignment completed through SAS MDM. The file results are then passed back to you guys via TIPCO, and the near matches are available in the application. So we just went over this 3 times. It's just to solidify that everyone's on the same page as to how the FLDEID process works. Now let's talk about the new items. So this says at the top, open the one-pager with process flow. So what we were planning on doing was providing you all what we are now going to be providing on our site, which is a one-pager. So for every one of these processes that we have, we're basically just going to put a one page together with all of the critical information to make it as easy as possible for users. So that is something new. We don't have them today, but they will be available. We will make them available via our application. And so we'll talk through that in a little bit. But on the one pager, you'll have something similar to what I have on that slide. First, we'll talk to you about the file type and the naming conventions. So for new ERPs, if you want to test your new SIS systems, your new systems locally, you have a brand new system that you want to implement, and you just want to test the FLDEID submission process, you can do that. Send us the file with the exact parameters of the assignment file. The only difference would be the extension would be .test, okay? If you submit an assignment file, you can take that file and just put .test on the end. That is, if you can submit that for testing your submission process, okay? So you can do that, that is now available. There is only one special consideration. We do not want the file to be larger than 100 records. Typically on a day-to-day basis, we're not receiving large files from districts. It's usually like 20 records, 50 records. So for testing, we say just please provide us with no more than 100 records. It can be in the exact same format as the master file. Only difference is just rename the extension to .test and it'll go through our testing process, okay? As part of the testing process, you'll be able to check the file naming conventions, the file format, the data values to ensure that it meets all of the requirements for assignment. You will receive an email to let you know that we received your file. You'll receive an email to let you know that the file has been processed, okay? That is our testing process. If anyone is interested in doing that, feel free. You can either email us or you can just send over a file with .test and your file will be validated, okay? If you have any questions about that test process, please let us know. Any questions on testing new ERPs? Corrections process phase 1. So Shannon spoke to this in the data quality session. Right now, we are actively collecting files for corrections process. But Shannon provides a specific format. Sometimes she gets it, sometimes she doesn't. So as of July 1, if we don't get it in those specific formats that we request, they will be returned to you all. So we're just trying to implement standards as we prepare for the automated process. We need to make sure everyone is following those standards so that we can make sure we provide you all with a clean corrections process. Okay, so we're still going to accept the Excel sheets that you all are sending, but they must meet the requirements outlined from our process. So Shannon will be able to provide that for you until we have that available in the application for you to easily get to. So feel free to reach out to Shannon if you want to know the new parameters around the Excel sheet, but we are still accepting it. Just need to make sure you follow the parameters outlined by Shannon. Okay. We are also still accepting the text file with the extension .corr. If those of you who submit corrections are familiar, we're still accepting all of those things. We're just formalizing what we're accepting to prepare you all for the automation process. Okay, so the file is in the exact same format as the master file. Extension is .corr. And I just basically ran through some of the special considerations around the fact that we want to make sure that we have a clean naming convention and file layout. You prepare the file, you submit the corrections file. Shannon will do her thing like she typically does. And like we said in the first session, the time frame varies because we are doing these manually currently. And initially they were coming little by little. People were making slight tweaks here and there. Now they're coming in the hundreds. So doing that manually becomes very cumbersome. So we can't tell you right now how long corrections may take, but they'll go into the queue and we'll work them in the order they come in. Okay. Duplicate file submission rejections. So like I mentioned, the files that were previously submitted for FLDEID assignment, if we see them again, we're going to flag them as a duplicate file, like identical files, the same exact total number of records, the exact same records. If we get them more than once, we'll send you an email saying, hey, you've already sent this to us. It is a duplicated submission. Please do not resubmit. Okay, that's essentially what this process will do. Local users have been submitting multiple iterations of the same file, and it creates a large number of duplication for your own FLDEID. You'll go to the FLDEID and you'll see yourself a number of different times based on how many times you submitted it to us. So we're trying to avoid that. And so that is why we've implemented this process. So please refrain from creating unneeded duplication in the vault. It not only impacts your district, but it also impacts others. I was going to open it up for discussion, but we don't have as much time, but I will take questions. It's an identical file. If we've already received that file, it would be, if we see that identical file again, we won't process it. It would be different. It wouldn't look like the same file. Yeah, we would process it. We're working on other processes right now to flag record duplication. This one is just merely file duplication right now. Any other questions? All right, so what's coming up for FLDEID? So we're going to start working on a resource page. So as you've heard throughout both Shannon and I's presentations, every time we say you want a document, you want training, please email us. That's been the standard response. But what we think would be a little bit cleaner, a little bit more efficient is if we make it available to you all via a resource page within the application. And so we would be providing you all access to be able to get to your business rules, to the technical guide, to the one-pagers, to the training site. Everything that we've been discussing would be available now on this resource page. And so that is the purpose of that, so that you all don't have to default to emailing us. It's readily available whenever you need it. In the middle of the night, you want to look up a code, you can go to the site and go look at the resource page. Here's a mock-up or an example of, basically what it would be. It would just essentially be a number of links with the documentation that's readily available for you all. Another big item that I think I want to kind of talk through and that has come up quite a bit. You all talk a lot to one another. You talk to us, you submit, and Shannon said, we no longer want to accept files through the email because of PII exchange. There is a lot of conversation about social security numbers and student information. And so we started talking through and floating around the idea of some kind of secure information exchange or secure communication via the application. So if you want to talk to a district, maybe you can submit something and ping them and say, hey, I have a question about an ID, versus calling on the phone, emailing, and all this information is being traded back and forth in an unsecure fashion. So that is something that we are working towards, and that if you have feedback around, you have suggestions, we're open to it, send them to the email box, and we'll be more than happy to listen to what you have to say, but it's something that's on our radar right now. Next up, the near match purge screen. This is something that you all contact us. Some of you all have gotten really slick about it and just send out an automated email every Friday. Please purge my near matches, purge my near matches. So if you no longer need near matches, you typically right now come to us and we will purge those near matches for you. But we want to make it to where we can expose it to the application. If you all want to be able to schedule your purging of your near matches from day to day, you can do it yourself. We can put it in the app and make it something that you all have the ability to do. And so that's something that we are also talking about, a near match purge screen. And so this is a mock-up of potentially what we're thinking. This is a very, very rough draft, but we are thinking about making the records available for you to be able to flag them and schedule them for purging at the end of the day. Automated corrections phase 2. So as far as corrections is concerned, like I said, it has been very manual up until this point because the system was never built with corrections in mind. I don't know, maybe they didn't think you guys would have to make any corrections, but it was never in mind initially. So, you know, we have to evolve. But the system is, because it is using SAS MDM, there's a lot of clustering going on, matching keys, there's a lot of different algorithms. So it's taken us a lot of time to get this to you all. I know you all have asked about corrections for some time. So now we're kicking into phase 2. We'll be working on that throughout this year. And essentially we'll be standardizing the formats. We won't be accepting multiple formats, Excel files and text files, and we would only accept one format. We would have a new naming convention. I'm trying to move away from those extensions, the .corr, .test, and just rename the file accordingly. So we're going to move towards a standardized naming convention. And we'll tell you all what we would allow you all to correct, what you will not be able to correct, the parameters around those corrections. That will all be in your business rules. Okay, so we'll be working through that extensively this year. We'll be pulling in some districts to participate in the piloting, like Shannon mentioned earlier on, so you all can help us work through the kinks of this process. We're going to start logging. We do have a mechanism in the background to log a change, but like I said, because this wasn't built into the system initially, tracking who's changing and what types of things are being changed. Those are things that we will now be including so that we can track it. We can maybe provide that back to you after a period of time. This is how many corrections you've had. Here's who has been correcting your records. And we could provide you a little bit more comprehensive information. And one of the parts of this automated corrections process, and one of the reasons why it's taking us so long to automate, is there's a lot of review that Shannon does on the front end to ensure that you all are not correcting it incorrectly. We've seen errors being sent to us for a correction, and Shannon may review it and notice something that stands out, and she flags it, and you guys are, oh my goodness, yes, I sent that by accident. Let me send you another record. So there's a ton of checks that Shannon does when we do it manually that we are trying to replicate programmatically. Are my slides jumping without me? Mm-hmm. Yeah, they are. So we're going to be implementing a lot of those checks programmatically. And so that is also a part of this corrections process. Any questions around phase 1, phase 2, corrections, duplicate submissions? Are there any questions? Another thing that we'll be working on, question. Okay. Okay, so the question was, she's never done near match purging, so she was curious what exactly was that. So right now, when you get the near matches, they may sit out there for someone to resolve them. But we've had districts where they're like, we don't really want to resolve those. So they sit out there for a period of time. They may sit out there for a year for some people. And so we're going to go through and start automatically purging after a period of time. But there are districts who say, I have too many near matches out there, purge them for me. And that's what we'll do. So that is what the near match process is. outstanding near matches that have been sitting out there, no one's resolving, they're old, they're obsolete, they can be purged. Any additional questions around that one? Okay. Another thing that we're going to be working towards this upcoming year is data visualizations. They want leadership and internal point of contacts. They want to see a little bit more about what's happening with the FLEID. So we're going to start working towards data visualizations and maybe surface that as well within the application. So I did want to bring that up because that is something that's really big right now in the department. So that is something that will be coming up this upcoming year. And we might be able to include that in the application. So if you guys have ideas of things you may want to see, things that might be helpful, useful, please let us know. No open discussion. I don't think you guys have any questions. So if you guys are good, we can go to the next thing. All right, matching and verifications. So I put a little bit of information around the matching and the verifications preliminarily so that you all have some information to review. So if you have the PowerPoint, feel free to run through, but essentially matches would allow you, if you don't have an FLEID, but want to get a glimpse at what's in the vault for a particular record, you would be able to submit it to the FLEID team. We will be able to bounce it against the vault and provide you FLEIDs that match that particular record. It doesn't mean that it's that student's FLEID. It just means that we took the information you gave us, we bounced it against the vault, and based on the information provided, it looks like it could be this particular person. It does not replace assignment in any way. It's just giving you all an opportunity to search, similar to what you would do in the lookup, but the flexibility is not there in the lookup. We've heard that quite a bit, and so we're going to offer it in another way. Okay. And the verifications, you are required to send in an FLEID for it to be verified. An FLEID has to be on the record for us to do a verification. Essentially what a verification is we just take a file and we determine whether the FLEID on that file, if we look at the demographics and the name and the DOB, that it actually lines up with the vault. And if it doesn't, we'll flag it and let you know the discrepancies. So that's what a verification would be. We're thinking of two types of verifications. The survey verification, so when you go to submit the survey record, we would validate it then. Or we would allow you all the opportunity to submit your files whenever you would like throughout the year, and we will be able to provide you, is this a valid FLEID for your district? And does this information align with what we have in the vault? Any questions around the verification process? Okay. And that covers it. Now, if there's something I didn't cover as part of the presentation that you guys wanted to talk about, we do have a little bit more time. So is there anything that I didn't cover that you all wanted to talk about in a little bit more detail?
Verification, you're saying when we send survey data, you're going to start verifying not just the FLEID, but also the name or date?
Correct, that is the goal, yes.
And when is that going to happen?
There's no date right now. That's something that we're working on. We actually have this process internal. So it's just a matter of getting it approved so that we can have it be available to you all regularly.
So will that be just like a separate process for the through the FLEID area, or is it going to be part of like our edits?
I was thinking about making it available through both. Throughout the year, you would have it available from the FLEID side. You could drop it as if it's an FLEID file and you can get your verification. And then during survey submission, it would be a separate process where you can get it verified on survey submission. That is my thoughts, but if you guys have any suggestions around that one.
Would it be a reject or just an edit, or reject edit, or would it be a verification?
So they said, someone was asking if we were to make the verifications a part of the survey submission process, would it be a reject edit? How would it work? So for the colleges, what we're actively doing now is we're making it informational. So for a full year, they can see what kind of information they're getting back. They can see the data, the types of messages we're providing, and then they'll make it mandatory. It's going to be a reject next year. So we'd probably do something. We probably would do something similar. Any other questions? Yes.
For students have double last names.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like the process is
So the question or the statement was, right now, there are individuals with double last names, and it doesn't seem like the FLEID process handles that appropriately. You are correct. We are working towards opening up our matching algorithm a little bit more because we do see some of those nuances. I know that's come up quite some time ago with Claudia as well. So we are working towards that and opening up the flexibility of our matching to handle those types of things. Any other questions? Okay, I think we're done, guys. Thank you. What time are we on? Oh, that's good. What time is it? 3:30. 3:30. Oh, you're still.